Joachim is leading the recovery course for us here at the training. When my dad introduced you this morning, he kind of hyped things up a bit. You say there are real legends about you now. Let's set the record straight. What have you actually done in terms of off-roading so far?
I spent several years of my life competing in Team Trophy, and I also did trials for a few years. And for a part of my life, I was also an off-road instructor for customer events at Mercedes-Benz. And over the years, you gain valuable experience with materials that can help you get out of difficult situations.
And what is very important to mention is that you bought an Extura from us, tested it yourself on some tough off-road trails and said, hey, I would really love to offer this model as a great new addition to your off-road training courses. I tested it myself and we just tried it out in practice outside a moment ago. And now we have a lot of equipment here on the table. We've put together a package. We're just going to go through it now from top to bottom. What is it and what do we need it for?
True to the motto, when you're driving off-road and there's no one around for miles, it's always better to have equipment than to need it. And with that in mind, we've put together this package exactly as it's laid out here. Some might say it's a bit excessive or unnecessary, but after the practical part of the recovery training, they're usually thoroughly convinced that everything here is perfectly logical and actually needed. And if you pack it all properly, it all fits quite comfortably, except for the sand ladders, into the side storage compartment. At the bottom of the Extura.
This is a very important point. Exactly. We need to pack all of these items into that large box over there, except for the heavy toolbox, which is kept separate, and the blue bag, which is also separate, but otherwise everything else fits right in there. So the first thing on our list is
inside the toolbox.
I don't think we need to explain much about that, do we?
Much to say. There are many toolboxes on the market, and we deliberately chose a high-quality toolbox from the company Würth, because Würth has been well known on the market for many decades now, and they are ranked #1 on the list when it comes to the tools that professional craftsmen always choose. And we said, what's good for the pros can't be bad for amateurs and motorhome owners. And that's how we ended up with this Würth toolbox. Everything is in there that I need to survive my unexpected mishaps out there while traveling with the motorhome. It's not a toolbox for a complete and thorough vehicle inspection, but it's a reliable toolbox with all the essential items I need if something on the car happens to break down unexpectedly. With the exception of the wheel and tire combination, and we relied on Würth for that as well. If I may jump ahead.
Go right ahead.
We have a really solid proper torque wrench here in the package because the large wheels on the Extura also need to be tightened to 180 Newton meters. And a hardware store tool like that is naturally overwhelmed in many cases. And especially considering our premium and expensive aluminum alloy rims, we also offer specialized sockets featuring a protective internal coating, so that the rims and the wheel bolts don't lose their pristine finish when using this equipment. That would truly be a real shame. That's why they're coated inside and out.
Good. So we've already covered the first 3 points. Toolbox, torque wrench, and the impact sockets are done. Then we have the Japanese folding saw. Where is it? Here, right?
We actually have it right here. And it is certainly not for pruning small Japanese bonsai trees, but the interesting thing is, most people who get into off-roading for the very first time, they only ever look straight down. There's the path. How do I get my car through there? And oh boy, so the path is really a bit uneven. And then they suddenly realize with a loud crunching sound when the car moves a bit at the bottom that it sways at the top.
By a lot more.
By a lot more, yes. 5 centimeters at the bottom multiply over the 3-meter vehicle height to over 30 centimeters at the top. And if my awning then makes acquaintance with the branches, that's usually unpleasant. So you can use a saw like this in advance and maybe clear 1 or 2 branches out of the way. And if the branch is a bit more stubborn, then we just use the axe.
Exactly, that's the next thing.
That is exactly why it is included. It really shouldn't be missing from any serious off-road vehicle. And since these situations can also happen in the dark, there is also a very powerful little flashlight included in this case, also from Würth, because they are simply the top supplier in the industry. So it actually has, let me see, what does it say right there for the total lumen output?
A lot.
A lot. It doesn't say. 800. So this is an exceptionally powerful lamp here. It makes the room remarkably bright, and it also maintains this high level of brightness for quite a long time.
Then we have our aluminum box. Good, we already saw that down there, so we just have all the stuff nicely together so it doesn't roll around individually.
These aluminum boxes too, there are tons of different ones on the market. I can also strap this aluminum box onto the car. It has a terribly stable rubber seal all the way around. When I close it, it's also dust tight. And it has an externally reinforced frame so that if I have a mishap, I don't bend the lid right away.
We still have shackles, including both soft shackles and steel shackles. That is exactly right. Why?
I could say now that when I started off-roading, they didn't exist yet. That's why I always have those in the car. No, the background is as follows. First of all, you should definitely attach recovery eyes to your Extura, Dovra, Norens or whatever when you buy the car and want to use it off-road. These recovery eyes, they're made of steel and they're sharp-edged on the inside. And if I then carefully thread a soft textile shackle like this through a sharp-edged steel eye, and then what happens next? Apply 2 tons of tensile load to it, then it will cut right through them. That is why it's perfectly logical and practical to securely fasten these steel shackles to the vehicle. They then hang, as already shown in one of the Extura reports, from the lower front section of the car like piercing rings. Yeah, first of all, if you use them in the right colors, it looks cool. And secondly, I would always leave them hanging there because then I don't have to fiddle around forever when I actually need it. With these versatile soft shackles, I can then, if I want to attach a rope, thread the soft shackle and attach the rope to it. Or I might already have a rope that features a pre-installed shackle end. That is then, of course, even easier. Then I take the whole rope, pull it through the shackle. It tightens itself automatically. So it was developed based on this Clint Eastwood gallows principle. It can't come undone, no matter how hard I pull. And then it's exactly as it should be. The thing hangs on the car. And then I have my strap in there. The second reason why I absolutely need such a steel shackle is if I ever find myself in a situation where I have to redirect the strap. Not every obstacle is right in front of me. Otherwise, it is impossible for me to move every single obstacle in that direction. There might be a tree stump, a big rock, or something else blocking the path. Then I actually have to redirect my strap over to the side, and that means if you could please play the tree and hold the shackle, then I have to be able to pull my rope all the way through the shackle just like this. That works relatively low friction here. And if I used instead of the steel shackle, using this soft shackle, then I create an immense amount of pressure. Fabric against fabric under an immense amount of pressure creates a truly incredible amount of friction. Friction generates heat. The lifespan of such a strap is significantly shortened as a result. That's why steel shackles...
Why is there still the soft shackle then?
Soft shackles exist because they are much easier to handle in any weather, because the problem here is always that I have a metal thread here. Many people make the mistake of inserting this shackle and turning it until it stops and then using it. And after that, they never get it open again. That's why you should also close such a shackle when you use it and turn it back at least a quarter better. Turn it back half a turn. Don't worry, it won't open during use. The soft shackle is much easier to handle. It is significantly lighter, and I can work much more easily with it when making rope connections or, as I have just demonstrated, hooking the shackle into the vehicle. Many specialized rope manufacturers already make their rope ends so that the shackle is already included in the design. It's a truly remarkable invention, but it just doesn't help out in every case.
We have the shackles, exactly 3-meter off-road performance carbon rope. That's what it says here.
We have it in hand, it has a great name, right?
Yes.
That is correct. To be more specific, our car has 2 distinct corners at the front, and we have within each of those corners a recovery eye and ideally a shackle installed. If our off-road vehicle gets stuck now, and you filmed it in the practical training session yesterday, then we always, to protect the vehicle and to outsmart the geometry, always put one secure rope point there, another rope point at the opposite corner, and then carefully lead the rope forward to the front.
Yeah, exactly.
You are going to want to set this up basically in the shape of a Y and then carefully hook the actual heavy-duty recovery strap right in here, which is securely connected all the way back to the primary recovery vehicle. That means when I hook in the strap that I hook in here, I hook it in again with a steel shackle because I have the lowest possible friction there again when it has to move. That means my recovery vehicle isn't always standing exactly straight in front of me. Usually it's standing somewhere to the right or left. The shackle slides back and forth on the Y strap, and I always have at all times on both recovery eyes the same pulling load. That means I relieve my vehicle frame by 50% per side.
Yeah, right.
That's what this 3-meter strap is for, because it's enough to go from recovery eye to recovery eye, which I think is 1.60 m on the X-Tourer. And then I have a bit forward, and then the 3-meter strap is definitely long enough.
What do we have the 5-meter strap for as well?
Well, let's complete the whole thing. We have the 5-meter and the 10-meter strap in flexible, and we have the 10-meter strap in rigid.
Yeah, right.
Yesterday, during our sand recovery training session, we demonstrated the differences between using a rigid strap and a flexible kinetic strap. This morning in the theory portion, we discussed the fact that there are various ground conditions, such as sand, mud, and snow, which essentially only differ in their color, consistency, and temperature. However, in terms of actual driving behavior, they are fundamentally the same. And in all three, I can get wonderfully stuck without noticing it at first. If I then have a towing vehicle that wants to pull me out of there, which is moving on the same slippery ground, and I then work with a rigid strap. A rigid strap basically means I pull until the strap is taut, and then I step on the gas pedal. If I start accelerating too early, I'll either rip the recovery eye off my recovery vehicle or my own trailer hitch or any other part of the vehicle where the strap is attached to. With flexible straps, the way they function is like this. They basically work just like a rubber band. I stretch the strap first, and eventually the material reaches the point where its maximum elasticity is reached, and then it catapults the vehicle forward. As one might say in this situation, pulling the towing vehicle out of the mud. And since we don't always have that much space to work with, you really have to add it all up very carefully. I have my vehicle here, which is stuck. I have my 3-meter Y strap, so I'm basically 2 meters in front of the vehicle where the Y begins. Then I have 10 meters of strap, and in the worst case, another 7 meters of towing vehicle.
Yes, that's right.
That already puts me at 20 meters. But I need to have that space in front. And if I don't have that, I'll just use the 5-meter strap.
Yes, that's right.
Because if I take this one and double it up, I'm also reducing its elasticity by half. And the actual rubber band effect of the flexible strap is cancelled out by that.
So we really saw that impressively yesterday. What a difference it made. Rigid versus rubber. Now let me see. So we have the 3-meter for connecting, we have the 5-meter, we have the 10-meter.
Yes.
In both flexible and rigid. When do I use the rigid one?
I use the rigid one on all surfaces that aren't soft.
Good.
Rocks, loose scree, and that was, I think, a very impressive and memorable story for you yesterday, especially if I get stuck with a heavy vehicle on a steep slope, and I actually have to pull it out upwards. Yeah, if I do that with the flexible strap, it gains momentum, shoots over the crest, in the worst case right into the back of the recovery vehicle. We don't want that. That's why the rigid strap is absolutely indispensable and very, very important for people traveling to Iceland. If I suddenly get stuck in a ford filled with stones of different sizes, for example, with the control arm on a boulder the size of a medicine ball, I don't want to be pulled over that with momentum. We do that very, very, very slowly. That's what these rigid straps are for, because they don't stretch at all. And then there is absolutely no risk where the towing vehicle starts moving too fast. It is just as important if I have to clear an obstacle out of the way, like our boulder in the practical exercise. I do that with the rigid strap too, because we don't want the boulder to suddenly gain momentum and be pulled into my recovery vehicle.
We also have the RB pump. a complete tire inflation kit, and an emergency tire repair set. I think that's over there. Or do we have it here somewhere too? Oh, there.
I'm not sure about the pump right now. Here's the hose.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the pressure gauge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to see how much you're pumping when you're pumping. You can see that very easily here with the pressure gauge. We have the tire repair set here. There are so many ways to repair tires on the passenger car and vehicle market these days. Very few of them are actually suitable for off-road tires. Our all-terrain tires are in a completely different league than normal car tires, just due to their material thickness. If I happen to drive over a sharp object that actually causes this tire to lose air pressure, I have to use much more professional tools than just a simple repair spray or similar toys. That is why I always carry the ARB tire repair kit. ARB is an Australian company. It stands for Australian Rescue Boarding or something like that. They come from the vast Australian outback. And when you know that you might not find a gas station for the next 600 long kilometers, you can certainly wait a very long time for help.
I think I just got something a bit wrong. We don't have a compressor with us. What I said wasn't quite right. Exactly, so we have the hose for it and the pressure gauge. The compressor itself isn't in our package because it has to be installed. You can't just pack that into our box.
Regarding the compressor itself, there is a portable unit that you can connect to the vehicle using a standard 12-volt power cable. However, it is not nearly as robust or high performance as the one you can permanently install inside the car. It's very important to keep the engine running when using it because it drains the vehicle battery. And the vehicle battery isn't 2 times 330 ampere hours like our auxiliary battery, but much less. So you should always keep the car's engine running when you are using a device like that.
Now we've discussed the things we've put in our package. Then we have 2 individual items. We have the air jack and also our sandboards. Let's start with the air jack.
Yes, that is definitely my personal favorite. We all know the story of how you first experimented with it at the beginning.
We got a bit of a scolding for that because, as it turns out, we didn't do it quite the right way.
We have the documentation on how to do it. I think you've already filmed that or whatever. You can see it quite nicely here in the picture. You can lift cars with this air jack. It can actually handle a pressure load of 4.5 tons. So you can easily lift the X-Tourer with it, even at the rear axle. You just have to know where. It actually works at the leaf spring mount in front of the rear wheel. At the front, it can be a problem if you've ordered the retractable running boards. Then you really have to make sure you stay far enough away from the metal rails of the running boards, because they're also sharp-edged and could damage it, so you actually have to go a bit further inwards. But that's not so bad, because the car is nowhere near as heavy at the front as it is at the back. So it works, and as we demonstrated quite impressively during that critical emergency recovery yesterday, this air jack can truly be a lifesaver if you ever find yourself stuck on a steep slope. Because when I am positioned on a challenging slope and that slope eventually ends at some point, my primary towing vehicle is situated way up here while the hanging vehicle is stuck down here, and I stretch a strap from point A to B. Then I inevitably pull the stuck vehicle over the crest because it won't go into the mountain. And then we use the air jack as a sort of pulley. Once you reach the top, guide the strap over it, and you can effortlessly pull the car up over the crest. The air jack rolls with it and withstands this pressure load without encountering any problems.
Maybe just very briefly, a few words on its use. It's inflated simply via this. There's a funnel-like thing included. You put it over the exhaust pipe. It goes up really quickly.
If you give it gas, it's over quickly.
Of course, if you have a compressor, you can also inflate it using that.
Exactly, yes.
And what we did wrong the very first time we used it ourselves was that we lifted it at the rear axle and didn't properly secure the front wheels.
Well, the reason for that is due to the Mercedes. You're only partly to blame for that. The Mercedes 4x4 all-wheel drive is an electronically controlled system. The car runs in normal operation only with rear-wheel drive. And the front-wheel drive kicks in when it's needed. The control units do that, not the driver or anyone else. And then there's the phenomenon that unites all vehicles, even front-wheel drive cars. The parking or handbrake generally only acts on the rear axle. So I inevitably have to securely fasten the front wheels from both sides with a heavy yellow wheel chock whenever I lift the car at the back. So it absolutely can't roll forward or backward. If you don't do that, the risk is high I've just jacked it up and then it decides I'm going to roll away now. And that can end very badly, especially with the Xtura, because if it tips off the bag and falls onto it with the side plastic cladding, that's potentially quite damaging to the cladding. And that can be prevented with a bit of care.
Now we have the last part, the sandboards.
Yes,
So we have one set up over there. Shall we use that?
let's start with the sandboard itself. It's very nice that it's lying here like this. Basically, when I use a sand track like this, I have to see that I somehow get it under the wheels that no longer have any grip. You can achieve that by digging. You can achieve it by lifting the vehicle and sliding the sand tracks underneath. And you can also use this sandboard as a bridge. That's why it's so nice that it's lying here like this. You can find sand tracks like these at Abenteuer Allrad on the internet and everywhere for 50 or 60 euros. Sometimes a trade fair offer 4 pieces for 120 euros. Here I think one costs that much. And there's a very simple reason for that, because I trust this board with my 100 kilos without any problem. And even more, yesterday I had a Dover driver who said, "Man, with my long wheelbase, I can't get through small dips in the ground here and there. What do I do?" I said, "Then you build yourself a bridge. You build it with 3 of these. You lay one down like this, the next one you lay exactly the other way around against it, on top of it. And then the third one you place from right here over to the exact middle of the other one. Lash it down with proper tension straps that can withstand at least 1.5 tons of pressure load. And then you simply drive your Dover over the surface."
What I thought was a really good point yesterday for all customers with hydraulic jacks. They have it quite easy.
Exactly.
They extend their jacks, put the board underneath if they're stuck, lower themselves back down, and stand on the board. Yeah, so that was another new argument for the hydraulic jacks.
But I would not do that here now, not without the right tool. And the same thing that applies to the jacks also applies to the car jack. And you're actually leaning on that tool right now. This is actually the one that fits the ARB sand tracks. A custom-made metal auxiliary frame. So I can take it just as it is. By utilizing these specific holes provided right here, which fit exactly onto the nubs in the sand track, you can see it very clearly here. Place it on top and it is locked and won't slip around anymore. Then my jack can get a firm footing there and I won't damage my sand tracks at all. So, that is the first point to consider. If I don't happen to have a built-in jack, I'll just use my own, and place it on top of the base. And start pumping. This jack here has a maximum working height of 65 centimeters. That's quite a lot, especially knowing that the jacking points on the Xtura at the back, quite simply, that's the rear axle. I go from underneath against the rear axle and we're at 32 centimeters there. With this setup here, we're probably already too high. So it might be that I just place this thing in the sand and put the jack on top of it. Or else I'll build a little tower like this one here and go to the front of the vehicle. There I have 3 different jacking points, according to what Mercedes specifies. Namely, one is at 51 centimeters, one at 53 centimeters, and one at 60 centimeters. 60 centimeters is the frame itself. If I know I have 65 centimeters of working height plus a 10 centimeter setup, then I'm at 75. 60 centimeter jacking point, so I only have 15 centimeters of clearance. And then the wheel should be off the ground. The axle articulation on the Sprinter actually reaches 18 centimeters. So in the worst case, I'd have to dig a little bit under the wheel. It's much easier if I just take a second sand track and put it on top, because they are specifically designed from underneath so that they also interlock perfectly with these holes and nubs. That means when I have one sand track and place it on the other, it practically snaps into place and simply won't slip at all. And then I build right here at this spot and I'm easily high enough without encountering any problems at all, and everything is fine. It really works perfectly.
So now we've worked our way through this entire huge table of accessories. Thanks a lot for your explanation.
Anytime.
That has really enhanced our off-road driving training for everyone who was here last year as well, because this was basically the advanced version of the course.
Yes.
If you already know how to drive, you now have to free yourself. Thanks so much for doing this with us.
You're very welcome.
I hope you'll come back next year and say, wow, that's exhausting. Yes, but But just because it's exhausting doesn't mean it's not nice.
It is nice. It's very nice. And I don't want to neglect Dieter Schlichterle at this point in time, my partner in the field of practical off-road training, who is actually taking part in the driving training himself now. We don't want to forget him. Many thanks to Dieter as well.
Who also with his Unimog once again?
Who is showing very impressively here with his Unimog what all can be done, right? I think it's really great that he brought it along. And as I said, all these things, you only really need these if you weren't paying close attention during your professional driving training. Because despite all the advanced recovery equipment we have here, which can help us out of almost any situation, the very best recovery method is always the one that I don't actually need to use. But if I do need it, having is better than needing. And that's why this equipment here makes 100% sense, from a purely practical user's perspective.
On that note, we're about to start the practical exercise outside again, right? Yes.
Yes.
We'll put all of that to use again and have a lot of fun doing it, just like yesterday. I
Hope so, right? Yes.
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
If you liked the video, more info is available on our website and especially on our trade fair website about other upcoming events and everything about the vehicles. You can always find us at our home base. At the company, we have all vehicles on site in the showroom or coming up soon. Abenteuer, Allrad, and Adventure Southside.